Okay, starting to rework some issues on the bus. Number one, this is my shutdown solenoid, and the wire came out of this connector, which was actually under electrical tape. So this is, let's call this connection 1, and then it goes to a white wire. And then the white wire changes to a red wire, so let's call that connection 2. And if I follow the red wire back over, the red wire changes to a black wire. Let's call that connection 3. And then I honestly don't dare to go look any further to see how many more times it has connectors. But I'm going to at least go ahead and go from here and run one wire straight over to there, make sure it's plenty long, and I can wire tie it where it needs to go out of the way. That's the kind of ridiculous little stuff that I need to spend some time doing. That's just kind of crazy. So I'm getting ready to set the idle on here. And on this style of governor, on the 671, this is the idle screw right here, which most governors on Detroit's will have a little cover like this. And when you pull that off, that's where the spring controls are. So this right here is the idle screw. And if you back this all the way out, you'll feel the tension relieve on it. And nothing will fall apart in there if you back it out too far, but you'll feel the tension come off on it. And then once that's all the way backed off, you need to make sure you have the buffer screw backed off all the way, and there's a locking jam nut on it, and once you take that off, then you can back it off and adjust it. Now that's only going to have an input of about 25 RPM when I'm done. Some guys will try to set their idle with this, and that is not the way that you do it. So this is the idle. You'll set the idle with that. Once you have the idle right, it might be loping a little or hunting, you know, changing the RPM a little bit. That's what the buffer screw is for. You can increase the RPM about 25 RPM with that thing, just so that it's a little spring in there. And just when it starts to touch, it'll just put the right amount of tension on the rack, and it'll hold it still. So it's a great, it'll make the engine run so nice. But if you try to set your idle with that thing, it'll never run right. And I've been at buses where guys have tried to do that. They don't understand, because it does change the idle, but it doesn't do it the right way. The idle spring here on the governor is the way that you do it. And then this is your high speed, no load. I do not recommend you screw with that. I have videos on that, but I don't recommend you play with that. But this one's fine. You're not going to hurt anything. You got to hold this with a vice grip because it'll spin. Hold that with a vice grip, and then you can loosen the jam nut and then back this off. It's usually a flathead screw or sometimes an Allen head, but usually you can do it with your fingers. And then make sure you hold it in place. And then I always start with vice grips on the rack just to have total control over what's going on. It's just a good safety feature. So a good pair of vice grips on here will overcome the spring that's in the governor, because you cannot overcome that spring with your fingers on here, I guarantee you. So I'm going to fire this up in a minute here and get the idle set, and then I'll be able to close that all up. Okay, Kelly's going to turn it over up front. Now I'm going to start to add the idle. Once I do that, then I should get it to start and be able to set the idle. I'm going to do it one-handed, otherwise I would do it with my hand on the rack. I have the vice grips here if I need to add them, and I have emergency shutdown flapper ability. Okay, go ahead! Okay. Couldn't turn it anymore with my fingers. Go ahead, do it again. the shutdown, you gotta hold it down until it stops. Still haven't fixed that air leak. There's an air hose here that I didn't have hooked up. Oh no, that's my governor. No, that's the air hose I didn't have hooked up. I haven't tightened it yet. There it goes. Sounds good. I always run Lucas. Normally I use the synthetic, but since this oil change isn't going to be in there very long, I just put a half gallon of the regular in there and just poured it over the valve train. I'm going to start it up here in a minute and take a look at all my little fuel jumpers. If you see a little oil on top of them, if any of them end up getting clean, that means that the diesel fuel is leaking around them, and I need to make sure that they're all tight and not leaking. Gotta adjust that buffer screw again just a little bit. But yeah, all those look good. There's still oil on them. None of the oil got rinsed off. I kicked the idle up just a little bit. I can't go over 1,000 RPM here, and I can't run it for more than 10 minutes as part of the initial break-in procedure, which I'll go through all that with you later. I was a little worried that Lucas was going to flick everywhere when I did that, but it did pretty good. It's got a funky sheen to it. Is that Lucas? The blower, it's just a little, this rubber that goes on there. I just need to tighten it and move it over a little bit. It should be good to go. If you don't tighten it, which I forgot to tighten that. That's why you check them for leaks. I sprayed it down with some brake clean, and then I'll start it up here again. But that should be. It wasn't even finger tight. Yeah, the break-in procedure, you have 10 minutes to run it at idle, never more than 1,000 RPM. 10 minutes is just for you to get things set up, check for leaks, get the rack run, everything set up top, idle, all that kind of stuff. And then the break-in procedure, per the manufacturer of the piston rings and the liners, wants you to immediately then put it under the heaviest load possible for 50 to 100 miles. So the first, with less than 10 minutes of idling, actually I think it says less than 5 minutes of idling in that time, I'll put a picture of their instructions. So I'll immediately take it from here to the interstate, which is what I always do. And I know in some of my videos before, I've had people comment like, oh, why would you take something brand new right out on the interstate? You're just going to make everybody's day real bad. Well, first of all, I don't do it at real busy rush hour times. It's not making anybody's day bad. And if it's either going to work or it's not. So it's probably worse of a problem to have it break down in town somewhere versus on the highway. But it needs to be put under a heavy load, constant load, about 85% of its possibility. So I'm going to take it out to about 60 miles an hour and just cruise. I'll go out to Terre Haute, which is about 50 miles away, and then 50 miles back. And there's a couple rest areas where I can stop like 10 miles into it just to check things out. But no, everything should be fine here. It should be good to go. That little oil leak, hopefully there won't be any more. Little things like that get missed. I have a couple more little bolts to put in here and there. I had to go put these bolts in this morning. I had put some copper washer and Permatex on them because they'll leak. I need to tighten up my fan belt. It's a little bit loose. I have a special tool that I made to do that. The wiring stuff's getting good. I got the propane injection on here. I'm going to set that up and I'll test that once I get back. But everything's looking good. When I said I put peanut butter on my head bolts, this is what I use. It's International Compound Number 2. It's made by Detroit Diesel. Its nickname is peanut butter because that's exactly what it looks like. But it is not really peanut butter, and don't put real peanut butter on your bolts. Maybe I should go around the block one time. Just check it.
Yeah, might as well.
Already. See any stream of fluids behind us?
It's always a good sign.
Fill it up. I see 2 little oil drips that look like ours under there. That is not ours over there. A little dark one down there and a dark one there. So it looks pretty good. So far we put gallons we put in? 50. It'll take about 60 gallons to fill it up. Great day to do this.
Yeah, he wasn't very far ahead of us.
Shift. Nice and left over. Everybody's gonna complain about the rain on the window.
I can see just fine.
Oh, mine's not working right now either. The engine feels nice and strong. Feels pretty smooth. No weird vibration or anything. We're doing 67 right now. And what is that? That's not a Prius, is it?
Yeah, it's a Prius.
I was just saying hi.
Hey, another Prius.
Jeez, oh Pete's. I'm a hybrid too.
I mean, kinda.
Propane and diesel, and sometimes veggie oil. Shit. Can I get the hybrid tax credit? I suppose I am. Every time I put veggie oil in, there's no highway tax on it.
Pretty much.
And propane too. Because I like to use alternative fuels. Oh, big puddle under there. That's a good sign. I did just see a couple little drips come down though. Open that one up. It's gonna be hot. Turn it over. Where's Where's it at? Right in the full there?
Yeah.
Check it one more time for me. Turn it over. Yeah, that's where it was before. We're not making any oil. I do see a leak here. Looks like maybe it's coming out of the oil filler tube, which that just needs to get cleaned up and redone. You can see there's oil on top of the starter. But I can tell you this, I think that's less of an oil leak than we had prior to the rebuild. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna go start it up and rev it up. You want to view my smoke for me back here?
Yep.
Alright, the bus is doing great. We are at one of my very favorite places, Tractor Supply. I got a coupon. I gotta get some rear end gear oil. And I'll probably get some engine oil while I'm here. Well, it was flawless today. Man, oh man. It is gonna storm. I just poured a bunch of degreaser out in the street. Some purple power. Let it sit on some of that oil stain, and it's going to rain. Hopefully it'll wash it all away here. But tomorrow I'm going to take it over to Tyler's friend has a shop that has a hot seat, and we'll steam clean it, everything real good on there tomorrow. And it won't be too long. It'll be looking as good on the outside as it does on the inside. So thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. Click the bell notification.